Hey everyone, welcome to Coach on Command. My name is Arron Littleton, and I'm the head coach of the Gymnastics Sport Center Storm, two-time AGA Champion, and your host for this hour of excitement and wonder. So we have our second guest on the podcast today, and so I'm going to kick it over to her and let her introduce herself, and then we'll go down the panel and let our normal, I guess we're going to say experts, we're going to let them introduce themselves as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Coach Jessica, and I would like to introduce myself as the best looking coach on the panel today, and I'm excited to get this started with you guys.
It's not like there's much competition.
I'm Coach Kaegan, and Jessica smells really bad. Send help.
I'm Coach Tracy. My fingers are cold and numb, and I enjoy that. Better than being hot. What's wrong with you? I can warm up, okay? You can't cool off.
So listen, other than being a disembodied voice in his spare time, Tracy is also a dead body.
Hey, I can warm up. I can't cool off. It's hard.
That intro will suffice. So tonight, for our main prompt, we are going to talk about finding your coaching voice. And I think this is something that's really important to do when you're whether it be a young coach or whether it be just new to the sport. I think it's something that can be somewhat difficult. Obviously, it can be hard when you first start coaching to find a persona, because I feel like who you portray being a coach is not necessarily 100% you. You have to, do some things. Like for me, I feel like I care a lot about the kids, but I don't, I don't necessarily portray that all the time. I'm a little bit more sarcastic, all that kind of stuff. And so I think you've got to find a persona that works for you, that feels as natural as possible and helps you accomplish what you need to get accomplished, and also one that feels authentic. So you're trying to, when you're first learning to coach, you're trying to simultaneously learn and teach at the same time. That can be a dizzying carousel to be on. Everything can feel like a blur while you try to juggle your coaching responsibilities and trying to find a way to make coaching suit you, to try to come into your own as a coach. Tonight we're going to talk about finding your coaching voice. So first question, Kaegan, why do you think finding your voice is so hard as a young coach or as a new coach?
All I know is my experience, really. So in my experience, it's finding the best way to express what you need to get done. Because you can't just goof off during a workout. You're not going to get anything done. But if you don't have the correct voice, there's a distinct lack of mutual respect among coaches, other coaches, and your students.
I'm one of the newer coaches here, and my background is not gymnastics or parkour, which is what I help coach in the Advanced Parkour class with Coach Tracy, who is the expert. But I had a background in teaching and education, so I worked with children. So telling kids what to do was perfectly normal for me. A lot of it was just having to also learn the movements and see what the kids were doing and learn how they should be doing it better. And then how do I tell them how to do it better, when in reality those kids probably knew way more about it than I did. Much easier to coach than for me to hop in there and show them how to do it. I tell them, no, they've got it. I'll just stand here and I'll watch you till I could get in the swing of it. So a little bit of it just took watching and observing until I could find more of my own voice and get that experience I needed to feel comfortable in actually being more of a coach and that voice and support that they needed.
I gotta say, whenever I first started, it was very difficult for me to feel honestly authoritative, because I had honestly just come from being a student myself, and in my eyes I was still a student. I didn't feel like I had it's hard. At what point do you feel like, oh, I have enough experience that I can teach this thing? By the time you've learned enough to know anything, you've learned that you don't know anything. So it's very difficult, because you realize the vast wealth of knowledge that you don't have, and it's really not until you get to that point that you're able to teach. But typically when you're at that point, you're still thinking, I'm a student, I have so much to learn, how can I be teaching others? So for me, that was probably the most difficult part to overcome. I still felt like a student, that didn't know enough to teach others. And because I felt that way, I didn't feel like I belonged in a place of authority to give instruction.
I think that's really solid. Children in a lot of ways are like bears. They smell the fear. And so you gotta, I think that's really something.
The blood in the water.
Yeah. Right. And so what I'm going to say is, for a long time, I feel the reason that I think this is hard is I think for a long time is that you feel like you're imitating someone else. And I've said this for a while, and I've said this organically, not just for the podcast, but with coaches. I hear my words coming out of so younger coaches' mouths, and it's like there's a certain amount of charisma you have to have. And I generally in my everyday life, I'm a little bit more of an introvert. You wouldn't know it as the host of this podcast and the head coach of our gym and all of that. But I would not mind just being locked in my room for the rest of my life. That wouldn't bother me at all. But so you've got to kind of project a different energy when you're coaching. And so that's why I say coaching persona, because it's not just you there. You've got to round yourself out in a way that is palatable to do the job. And so as you're watching somebody, whoever is teaching you how to coach, I think it is natural to imitate maybe some of their mannerisms, definitely their words, the things that they say. And there's a lot of stuff that I say that Mr. Cronin said, and I just stole it from him because I didn't know what I was doing when I was a coach. And so he would say stuff and I would be like, hey, and I tried to say the same thing. And so sometimes you don't have necessarily the charisma as a young coach to pull off things that the older coaches can. And that's part of the reason that it's hard. And the other thing is that when you're trying to imitate someone else, it always comes off and feels inauthentic and weird, a little robotic, because it's not you and it's not something you're super comfortable doing. And so I think finding yourself in the job is something that's very important, but it's also very hard to do when you're first starting out. And so Kaegan, you were once a young coach. You're still a young coach, but what's that look for? I didn't.
I was trying to find like something that you've never experienced before. Like, I don't know. What do you want from me?
I said you're still a young coach, and I just got.
What do you want me to say?
His peach fuzz was talking to you.
So, how was your process? Everybody's got a different process. What do you remember about that as you're trying to find yourself in coaching? And so was it easy? Was it hard? Tell me about it.
I'm the perfect coach. Yeah, it's currently it's been slow and hard and very percussive. Your favorite word.
Percussive means that you beat something until it works properly. There
exactly.
You go.
I've been beaten. Send help. But it, like I said, slow, hard, meticulous, and for the most part, not very fun. Learning to be the person that you need to be to do this is a very hard process. And it's not for everybody. For a long time, I didn't think it was for me.
All right, jumping into my story, I am definitely still in that process of trying to find my voice as a new coach here in this game. When I first started, some of the main things I did were watching the advanced students. So we got put into the advanced class, so I had the luxury of being paired with kids that knew what they were doing. I just had to find small things that I could tweak and comment on. Another big thing I did was ask lots of questions to all the coaches. Hey, this kid is trying to do this flip. Can you come watch them with me and then tell me what you see so that I can help tell them to fix this? What should I be looking for? Can you explain this to me? How can I better instruct them on this? Can you give me specifics? And they would coach me on how to coach. And that was a really big help. For quite a while, there were many times where we would come up here, teach a class, and as soon as all the kids look, I look at Coach Tracy and I say, can you teach me everything we just went over with them? And he would say, all right. So I would be in the student position. He would be in the coaching position. He'd say, all right, so this is what it would look like. And I would actually be doing the tricks and the flips that the kids were doing so that I could still have that experience of doing it and experiencing it. so that I could feel it from both sides, both the coaching side and seeing what it looks like versus actually doing the action. So making sure I was on both sides of that and having the hands-on so I could give that relatable experience to the kids later was a big help in my learning process to find my voice and my confidence as a new coach.
I gotta say, for me, I felt like I had to work a lot harder than the students because I felt like I had to learn more than they knew. And so I took a lot of time to try not only to learn how to do a trick, I tried to learn how to do a trick, but not only that, sometimes it's more important to learn how to teach something versus do it yourself. Because there's a lot of people that can instruct you how to perform skills excellently, but they couldn't do it themselves. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, you can have someone teach you that is physically unable to do it themselves. Doesn't mean they don't have knowledge or wisdom on how to perform things. So I felt like that process was long and difficult for me because, like I said, at the time I still felt like a student. So I worked very hard to study not only tricks, but training exercises. You know, I had to not only learn how to do the tricks, teach the tricks, but develop students to a point where they were ready for those tricks as well. And that was part of that journey. It was harder than I thought it would be.
No, you make a point about having to learn more than they knew. And for a while, for about a year or so, I was just in charge of the beginner program, and that was easy enough, forward roll, backward roll. And now, I mean, there was a time when I had to learn, all of that because I was a basketball player, and you don't do that kind of stuff. And so there was a certain learning curve, but I really remember when I got to team and pre-team, and there was just all this stuff going on. Like, you just walk in a gym, and even if there's like decently high-level gymnasts going on in there, and you're just watching. If you have no idea what's going on, it's just almost like it's just a cacophony of noise. Like, ba-ba, ba-ba. There's just all this stuff going on around you, and it's really hard to if you're the one who's having to coach that and have to know what's happening. So I completely echo that part. The other thing is I just felt like it took forever. And you're just in it, and you're just like, bro, I am never going to get this. Like, this is never going to happen, and I'm just going to be learning this forever. And so I came in as a complete novice. I had no idea what was happening. I had no business even being in the gym. And so there have been stages for me, but it has all been one humongous learning experience. And so Jessica said something that made me think, ask all the questions, be a sponge. That's super, super good way to have yourself progress more than you normally would, because you see the coaches that don't care and they don't ask and they don't, it's just like, hey, I'm here and I clocked in and I'm going to walk around until it's time for me to clock out, and then I'm going to clock out, I'm going to go home. And so if you can do that, and actually ask questions and care, number one, then you can get yourself a leg up. And so the other thing is that I said before that for a long time you feel like you're imitating someone else. And that person for me was Mr. Cronin, and me and Mr. Cronin have two completely divergent personality types. And and so it didn't work for me trying to imitate him, because he's like, hey guys, we're going to come in and we're going to do all this. It's going to be super fun, and then we're going to run 8 miles and do 300 clap push-ups. It's going to be great. Yeah, energy. And I'm just like, that doesn't even. And so trying to follow him, and so when he showed me how to do it, that's how he did it. It was like, yeah. It's like almost like Russell Simmons. That's the guy's name, right? But no, Richard Simmons. I was like, you know who I'm talking about. Richard Simmons. Yeah, but he would just come in, he's like, hey guys, super positive. And that's just not really my personality type at all. And so that felt super forced, and I didn't like that. And so, it took me a while. I didn't want to be like all mushy and squishy, and I am squishy, but I didn't want to be, yeah, I beat you to it. You nearly got a good one. Not today, brother. Okay. But the thing is, I didn't want to be someone who, just gushed over the children. That's not a great look. It's kind of weird. I feel like that would have been kind of weird on me as someone who's just like, hey, you're just doing so great. And that's not, and so for me, it took me a while to kind of tinker with it, my own persona and what I wanted to do, and I found that sarcasm, was a much better look for what I was trying to do. It felt much more authentic, and you can kind of have a banter with the kids and the other coaches. It makes it fun, and it builds camaraderie. And so, as you can tell, right, Kaegan? And so
they bully me. Help me. This entire episode is just a cry for help.
But yeah, and so sarcasm, really was something that helped me kind of come into my own. It felt natural for me, and that helped me find my coaching voice. And so I started burning people, and I never looked back. So yeah, and the other thing too was I really kind of felt weird until I found the sarcasm, and then also until I became the head coach. Because now you're accountable. Now that's a whole different level of accountability. And as a young coach, it's a completely different thing to just show up and it's like, oh, well, I just do what everybody says and I just don't make a lot of waves and I just try my best, to being like, hey, guess what? You're in charge of this whole thing now. Congratulations.
It's different to come in and be in a position where, oh, I just go wherever he tells me to do and I do the thing he tells me to do, right, versus I have to come up with the thing to do. I have to make the plans and I have to structure the class.
Yeah, there's a I don't think it's a joke. It's a story where it's like there was some big government corporation. They had a problem with their computer, and they got this guy who was allegedly an expert at this, and he comes in and he looks at the computer and he's in there for 2 minutes and he kind of listens to it, and then he draws an X and goes right there, and that's your problem. And then they go, okay, that's awesome. And so they got it fixed, and they sent him an inquiry, and he's like, how much is this going to be? He's like, $10,000. They're like, $10,000? You were in there for 2 minutes. What happened? How are we supposed to pay you this for 2 minutes? I'm going to need this itemized. And he said, drawing the X, $2. Knowing where to draw the X, $9,998. And that is really what you're, as the head coach, you're held to so much a different standard than every other coach. And so it's not only just doing what somebody else tells you, it is knowing what to do and discernment. So, that's really what it is. It's one thing to show up and do your job. It's another thing to know what job needs to be done and how to execute it. And so, yeah, that'll break you out of your funk real quick if it's like, guess what? You're in charge now. And so that's how it happened for me. So last question. Do you have any tips for trying to come into your own? We've talked about how hard it is, and I think that is something that's absolutely true. And, for any of the new coaches out there who may be struggling to find themselves in coaching, Kaegan, what do you got?
Trial and error. It's highly unlikely that you will find the correct answer the first time. You have to figure out what works for you, what works best for your student, singular, one, students, and the coaches around you. And a big thing is be personable. It's hard to work well with other people when you're flat, boring. If you humanize yourself, you'll probably be a little easier time. That was not a real sentence.
My tip for coming into your own ties a little bit back into the previous question. My main one is communication, and that's communicating with the kids and having a relationship with them and being relatable, as well as communicating with the other coaches and going back to asking those questions. My experience would be learning with the kids, and that helped me because I could still kind of be the student, but I was still directing them as needed. So we were learning together and being relatable, such as when I would stay after class to practice, then I could tell them, hey, I see you're having trouble with setup. I also found I have that problem. This is how I was trained to overcome it. So let me see if my method can help you. It may not. But that was something that helped me be able to be a better coach.
I would say that the first tip, and probably the most important one from my perspective, is to study. It kind of stinks. Almost nobody enjoys the study, but you have to understand at least a little bit of what you're talking about to be able to convey it. But another tip for trying to come into your own, what worked for me and how I developed my style initially was I thought of myself back when I was a beginner student. I didn't have a coach. Like I mentioned before, I watched Link jump off a platform and roll, and I thought that's neat. I could do that. Anyways, but I did think back, how much better would I be if I had a coach? What would I wanted that coach to be like? How would I wanted that coach to teach me? And I started my coaching by emulating what I thought I would have wanted as a student myself.
It's a good thing that you weren't playing Assassin's Creed. Be like, here,
Dive into
yeah,
this
I know.
haystack.
Yeah. From 3,000 feet in the air. Yeah, that was.
It'll be fine. I saw it in a video game.
Different parkour. That's that's what that is.
We leveled up from Legend of Zelda
Yeah.
with the Prince of Persia.
So yeah, I've got a few tips, and the first one is, and I think we kind of hit on it just a second ago, as far as being a sponge and all that. But seek opportunities for betterment. Okay, and that's something that goes for anything. It's not just for coaching. It's like, care about what you're doing enough to want to do it correctly, and ask all the questions to anybody who will listen and who will answer you, and get a bunch of different perspectives from people who are more successful than you in this place, that you're trying to, in this sport. There you go. I was thinking this arena that you're trying to learn. But yeah, so that's number one. Number two, lean into the grind. There's going to be hard times. We've all talked about how hard it was. And so for me, I was thrust into a position where I was all of the sudden the purveyor of gymnastics, because I became the head coach. And then when we got to team, now I have never had any girls competing before, but I'm the coach of record. And that's a whole different thing, because Mr. Cronin, he never really was the head coach of the team. He was the gym owner. And so when I became, it was like sink or swim, buddy. If you don't know what you're doing, and you don't know what needs to be, consulted with the judges, and hey, this is wrong and we need to get this changed, and you don't understand the rules, it's like, yeah, best of luck to you. And that's kind of where I came in at in the sport. And so you've got to lean into that, and you've got to know that it's not going to be super easy. And sometimes, as Kaegan said, it's not going to be super fun. And so for me, when I first came in and I was first the head coach, I slept with that rule book, because I was a basketball player and different rules for that sport. And so I slept with the rule book, and it's like I had to figure out what amplitude off the table was, and how many tenths this was and that was, and what B skills, and this is worth 5 tenths, and requirements and all sorts of stuff. Yes, I could make your head spin with the things that I had to learn to do this. But, and so lean into the hard times, because that's going to make you better. And then the last two are whatever your coaching persona. And now, if you're the head coach, you're not always going to be super liked. You shouldn't always be super liked, because you've got to hold everybody accountable, and nobody likes that. And but try to be fair. As fair as you can be to all the people around you, whether it be the coaches or the gymnasts or whatever. And also, and this may be the most important thing, whatever persona you have, whether it be sarcastic or loving or whatever, have expectations for people and plainly state them, and so that they can really understand what you expect from them, and then they can try to deliver that. But, if you don't communicate it, you're never going to get it.
I would say another bonus tip is to consider working on your own perspective, because a lot of people see things and think, well, this is a problem, and it's a negative thing. Well, also you can work on your perspective to think this is not a problem. This is an opportunity for us all to learn more and progress together. So maybe if you don't know something, or you come across something you've never seen, think about it that way, and it becomes less of an obstacle and more of an opportunity.
Absolutely. I think in one of our previous episodes, I talked about how coaching is a puzzle, and everything's, a puzzle to be solved. And, if you look at it that way, an opportunity, I think those two things are closely linked. An opportunity for you to better yourself, a puzzle to be solved so that you can learn more than you knew the day before that. I think, that's a really positive mindset to have, and a good way to look at it. And so we find ourselves arriving at the randomly strong opinion of the day. And so we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to remix. We're going to remix the randomly strong opinion of the day. Remix! This is what we're gonna do. So instead of just giving our random, things we're mad about that day,
Or happy. It's not always negative.
okay, fine. Giving strong opinions on what we're gonna talk about. This is what we're gonna do. I had this idea that maybe instead of doing that, we could have 5 completely random and arbitrary objects that we need to rank, and I thought it'd be fun because we are definitely going to disagree. and everybody's going to disagree with Kaegan, and so that's always fun.
That's always normal.
So that's what you tune in for. We got to give the people what they want. Okay, so the 5 things that we are going to rank are kumquat, house slippers, a chimpanzee, a rowboat, and an egg.
My number 1 has to be a rowboat, because then you can go fishing, and fishing is great. My second thing is chimpanzee, mainly because I'm employed by one, but
Oh, you got a
they're
good one.
also.
I'm
I got a good one. Hey! Yes. Only took like what 9 episodes.
This is the 11th episode.
Only took 11 episodes. No, and plus they're just cool. They're cool looking. Anyway, kumquat because it's a fun word to say. I love the word kumquat. Eggs because I really like omelets. Omelets are good. And then house slippers because I've only owned 1 pair in my life. 1 pair, and I've never needed another pair.
All right, so what was funny is my number 1 and number 5 are the total opposite of his. So my number 1 ranking would be house slippers because my feet get cold at home and they keep my feet cleaner, and my dad was a stickler on always having something on your feet at the house. And yes, Dad, it stuck. You're welcome. Number 2 would actually be the egg, scrambled or boiled. Omelets are all right, but too many colors in them. Just go with cheese and maybe some meat. You're good. Number 3 would actually be chimp. Chimpanzees are fun to watch, and I had a sister that it reminds me of. So number 4 is kumquat. It is also a very weird fruit, one you do not hear mentioned very often. It is in the citrus family. I looked it up to double check. It's weird, but it's different. And rowboat because, guys, there's no water in Texas. You don't need a boat here.
Okay. I got to go with egg for number 1 because eggs are delicious. Omelets with peppers are fine. My wife's crazy. Number 2 is the rowboat because while there is not much water, usually if there is water, there's fish in it and you can fish. Fried fish are good. I don't fish, but some people could fish, okay? Kumquat because I like food and, I like fruits. Fruit's good. The chimp has to come above the house slippers because at least the chimp could have
utility.
Utility, yes. Some level of utility. The house slippers are worthless, but the chimp could bring me the egg or the kumquat for me to eat and potentially even sit in the rowboat and fish. So the house slippers can do none of those things. So the chimp works great. House slippers, total negative. I don't even like to wear socks. So there you go.
I was gonna say that Kaegan he doesn't want the rowboat to fish. He wants to jump out of the rowboat and try to catch a fish with his bare hands.
I'm spear fishing. I am the spear.
I get the feeling that everybody's gonna disagree with me. So here we go.
You're wrong.
Quit reading my paper, Kaegan. No, I'm sorry. All right. So number 1, I've got chimpanzee because I feel like me and the chimpanzee would be really good friends. We would be bros.
You work with some?
Yes, I would. Right, I feel like me and the chimpanzee would be bros. So number 1, chimpanzees are awesome. And also, if I ever have any bugs in my hair, I can get that taken care of for
I'm telling
free.
you, the utility is there.
It can fish. It can remove the
Are
in
bugs
your
in your hair a common problem?
No, I wear a hat. But if there ever were, you never know what's going to happen.
That's a good point.
You never know, and so you gotta have as many bases covered as possible. That's number one. So number two are the house slippers, just because I don't know. I like house. And so I do not usually have house slippers, but I like the idea of house slippers. Okay, and so I do not normally wear them. Although I do have some Whataburger house slippers that have fries, which are super awesome. I'll wear them on the podcast one of these days.
Give a slippers day.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't always wear them, but I do enjoy the thought of the comfort and coziness that they could theoretically provide. Okay, so number two. Number three is the rowboat, because they are useful if you need to escape from somebody, and also if you need to propose to a girl, but you really need to have your marine friends on board for that one. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about the Little Mermaid, if y'all don't know. So rowboats, you can escape, or you can propose and then realize that she's crazy and then escape. You can knock her out of the boat. Okay, anyway. And then kumquat, just because it is fun to say. I don't even know what it is, but it's got an awesome name, and so I enjoy that. And that's the reason I picked it for this list. Not even know what it was. And last, and this is the one that I'm about to get disagreed with, is the egg. I do not like eggs. And the reason I don't like eggs is because the texture. I will take eggs one of three ways. And here you go. This is official. I like them in burritos. That's fine, as long as there's other stuff. Then scrambled, but I have to have hot sauce on them. So, or
Fair.
yeah, and so not like mega, burn the lining of your mouth off hot sauce, but regular hot sauce. And then the other one, my mom used to make this thing when I was a kid called an egg sandwich, and it's basically just poor people food. And
I resemble that remark.
and you have bread, and then we have mayonnaise, and then scrambled eggs. You put it on that, and it was actually pretty legit if you had Miracle Whip with it.
Eggs with egg sauce on
Would
it.
you eat them in a house with a mouse or with a fox and socks?
No.
The teacher
Honestly,
started
we're
Would you, eat
true.
them, would you eat them in a plane in Spain?
And so anyway, yeah, I don't like eggs. So the egg is, while partially nutritious, that is definitely my number 5. All right.
You're built like an egg. I had to throw one bad one in today.
I
hope that was picked up by my
one.
mic.
He
I
got
hope
one.
that was picked up.
I'm just glad he's coming out of his shell.
That's solid. I
that was
like it.
good.
He really
I
cracked
like
one
it.
off there.
Yeah. All right. So thank you. Thank you for tuning in. That'll about do it for us. We appreciate you hanging out with us. If you're enjoying this, I'm not sure why you would, but if you are, please remember to like, comment, subscribe. So, Kaegan, what's our email?
AskCoc@yahoo.com.
That is the correct one. And so, yeah, that'll do it for us. Thanks so much for hanging out. And please stay tuned for Cheese Whiz, the musical.
Have a flipping great day. I didn't read that one.
And don't forget to send. Take care.